Welcome back, students. In this lecture, we're going to talk about another common way that people can attack your web page, and that's called Xss Injection or cross-site scripting injection. And so this happens when the user enters JavaScript into a text box that gets saved in the database, and then that information in the database is inserted into a web page when the web page is built dynamically on the server using PHP. So as an example, if you enter something like an opening script tag and then some JavaScript and a closing script tag into a text box, then it's possible that what's between these script tags is going to get executed when the web page is loaded. So in this case, all we've done is put an alert in here that says you've been hacked, but it could be some other more malicious JavaScript. Now, they're not going to have direct access to your database like they would with SQL injection, so it maybe is not quite as dangerous, but again, it's something that they can use to get into your page and cause damage. So again, the user enters something like this in red into a text box, then that content is stored in the database, and then when the info from that database is used to build a web page, that script is executed. So let's go take a look at this and see what can happen. So I'm going to go into my content management system administration page. Say I'll add a new group. Say the group name is going to be test XSS. That's fine. And then here, because this is a text area box and because it's stored as text in the database as a text field, there's no limit on what we can write in here. We could put any amount of JavaScript code we wanted in here. We're going to do something simple. It's just going to say, just like we did in the example, we'll just alert you've been hacked and then a closing script tag. And then I'll click Add Group. And as soon as I do that, this page is reloading, and whenever this page loads, that's going to get executed now. And to see why that happens, we'll go to our Google Developer Tools and look at the source for this page. And if we come down, Groups tab, and so this table is built dynamically in a PHP script using data that's in the database. So we see some things like the name of the group here, and then this is the contents field. Allows access to maps that permit data, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we come down here to test XSS, we'll see that what gets put in here is the script tag and the alert. And so this is just in our HTML source code now. And so when the browser gets to this point, it sees a script tag and says, okay, I'm interpreting everything between these script tags as JavaScript and executing it. And so every time this page loads, it's going to execute this JavaScript. And that's why we get this alert box anytime we load the page. So if I hit reload, I'll get that alert box again. And so in this case, it's just annoying, but it could be a problem. Now, fortunately, this issue has a fairly simple solution as well. And it's very similar to what we did with SQL injection. So we can use this PHP HTML entities function that will convert special characters to the HTML codes. So in the database, we use the escape character to tell the database that what's coming next should just be interpreted as text and not interpreted as any kind of special character that means something to the database. And then in this case, we're bringing data out of the database and into HTML, and this HTML entities will convert special characters that HTML uses and converts those to just text that won't be interpreted as HTML directives. So HTML entities usually start with an ampersand, and then it could have a code name like LT stands for less than, and that will be interpreted as the less than symbol. And that will display the less than symbol, but it won't be interpreted as the opening bracket of an HTML tag. It's just going to be interpreted as text. And similarly, ampersand GT will get displayed as the greater than symbol. And there's a whole bunch of these. They have different names, like ampersand copy will create the @ symbol, and you can create just about any kind of character using these HTML entities. You can create like some of the accents in foreign languages. They might have accented vowels or things like that. Those are all possible. And in fact, if you have an ampersand and a pound sign, then what follows is a numeric code, and that numeric code also has an interpretation. So the numeric code 169 also converts to the copyright symbol. And that number could be a normal decimal number like you have here. It could also be a hexadecimal number. And there's going to be a numeric equivalent for every character that is in whatever character set that you're using, which in our case is UTF-8. Now the named entities are easier to remember, but they're not as standardized. There might be some web browsers that don't recognize all of them, and there's not necessarily one for every single character in the character set, but they can be really handy. But anyhow, the PHP HTML entities function will do that, and so you want to do that after you retrieve the data from the database and before you insert it into the web page. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to go to the editor. In my PHP functions, I'm going to write another PHP function. I'll put it right in here, and I'll call it clean_array. It's going to take as input a PHP associative array, and then what we're going to do is loop through that associative array with a for each loop. And so we'll say for each array has key val. We've done this many times in this course. You should be familiar with this by now. But then we'll replace the value in that array. So for every element in that array, we're going to replace the value with not just a value, but we'll replace it with the value after it's passed through this HTML entities function. So we're running this HTML entities on every value in that array that's passed to the clean array function. And so we have a function that will do that for us. Then we need to go back to a PHP script. Let's see, I think that's just an admin, right? We have tab users. We have tab groups. This is where we're getting data from the groups table. That's where we have our Xss injection. And in here we're looping through the database and finding all the different groups and getting that returned back as row. And then we're creating this table with the data from this row array. And so what we need to do is before we echo that out, we need to clean it. So we'll use our clean array function and we'll pass it the row variable. Actually, we need to do something else really quick. This is not going to work. Sorry about that. I'm forgetting how to work in PHP. So after we've looped through this array and cleaned everything in it, it's a function, so we have to return the array. And then when we use that function here, we have to create a new variable called row, and we have to take that variable called row and set it equal to the clean version of row. And then everything's going to be converted to HTML entities, all the special characters, and when it gets back, it's going to be safe to display. So we can see that. We'll go to our admin page, and if you see right now, after this test XSS, there's blank in here because as far as the web page is concerned, there's not text to be displayed, but JavaScript code to be executed. But if I refresh now, instead of getting that alert, I actually get what was actually entered into the text box, viewed as text because everything has been converted to HTML entities. And so this code doesn't get executed anymore. And so that's something that you'll want to do anytime you're getting input from users and store it in the database, and then using that data to create a dynamic web page. You want to clean it using the HTML entities function. Now again, in this case, we have control over who gets access to this admin page. So we're not going to allow just anybody to get access to it. And honestly, if someone has access to this page, there's probably a lot more damage that they can do. They can come in and just delete these anyway. So before they would even be able to do this, they could do a lot of damage. So again, the first line of defense is not allowing anybody that you don't trust to have access to your server-side web applications. But just as a backup to be super secure, you'll want to clean your data using HTML entities. So thanks for listening. I'm going to have one more lecture that I'm adding today, and that's just going to correct a few errors that I found, and that have to do with making this page a little bit more mobile friendly. Right now, if I go to Google Developer Tools, and even if I reduce the size of this page, it still looks pretty decent. But once we get to a certain point, so right there, we lose our menu. And what should be happening is that the menu should be collapsed into a drop-down menu over here on the right. And that's not happening. And if we look at this, if I use Google Developer Tools to look at this page like it would be on a mobile device, see, well, here I still have the menu, but the text is so small it's unreadable. And so we're going to make a few changes in the next lecture that will make this a little bit more friendly for mobile users, because I didn't realize that this was happening, and I wrote an application that was intended to be used by mobile users, and I discovered that this wasn't working the way I thought it was going to. So it's going to be a short lecture, but it's an important lecture. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you then.